Today we talk about diversity and inclusion in Asia with Laila. Laila is the head of HR and inclusion at British American Tobacco. A fast tracker and a diversity and inclusion champion, she creates every day a better tomorrow at BAT. In this new episode of Asian TYDE, you will discover tips on how to challenge the status quo and how to convince your top management to be more diverse and inclusive.
On your LinkedIn profile, it's said D&I champion, meaning diversity and inclusion champion. And I wanted to know what drives you to be such a champion nowadays.
Yeah, it's something close to my heart. Something I'm very passionate about. The first answer I give when people ask me is to say I feel like it's the right thing to do. I think we've kind of, as a world, gone through a lot in terms of, having people from a very diverse background, giving a lot opportunities to women, to ethnic groups, to the minority group. And I think more and more we've proven that actually, if you have a much more diverse group of people and you make sure that opportunities are being given equally and people have access, the world just gets better from it. So I'm really a big believer of it because I think it's the right thing to do. Maybe I'm a little bit biased as well because I'm an Asian woman and I feel like there's a lot to prove from this angle. So I feel like I'm trying to find a way for minority group to get in the table as well.
Okay, what makes you think that there is a lot of things to prove as an Asian woman?
I think just if you look at representation, if you look at some of the stereotypes and some cultural elements as well, I think there is a lot of space to be taken by Asian women in business, in leadership, in the world. So I think if you are in situations or if you are in spaces that you can make some changes so that people have more access or people are included in conversation, I think we should. I mean, all we need to do is to look at the statistics of where the world is now and how people are being represented, and it will tell you that we have a long way to go to get into really a gender equal, diverse, and inclusive world. So I look at my profile. I'm like, yeah, I'm part of the minority, and I'd like to be able to continue the conversation. And how do we move this along? I have heard like some comments, not necessarily in this line of work, but in other experiences. I think we look at certain jobs, for example, and this gets a bit tricky. Then it's like you will hear people make comments about, couldn't find a female engineer. Females don't want to do this job because this job is hard, and this job is on the field, the sales job. It travels a lot. Those are conversations to be had. Not always easy to answer on what's right or wrong, but it's about educating people on. Those jobs are hard, predominantly usually done by male. But if you do have a female candidate who's interested, it's really more how do we assess who's the best fit, and how do we make sure that people are given a chance, and also just questioning. Maybe we should change that job. Is it really required to do all of that? If it hinders a certain part of the population to not want it, maybe there's something wrong. Maybe we should look at it. So I've had experiences on those sides. There are jobs in the world that are predominantly male. You wonder why, and then you get comments that, because they don't want it. Those general kind of generalization, and be like, yeah, that's fine. Like if a particular candidate don't want it, of course we're not going to force that candidate, but we should still open this and try to get diverse candidates in and see how we can improve improve on this job, on this role, or in this part of the business.
I see. Yeah, the idea is really to support the candidates and being open, like keeping an open door to those female candidates.
Yeah, like I think this is old school example. I don't think it happens now, but a lot of sales job in 10 years ago, the reason they don't have women is there's no toilet for women. They go traveling on rural areas to do sales job, door to door. I've heard some stories about this in some parts of Asia. And the reason why some women are discouraged to take this job is because you're on the field, and some field offices don't even have a toilet for women. Like these are some common examples that I've heard on some jobs. And maybe in the past, no one even thinks about it because why would we have one? All of our sales guys are male. Sometimes it's those things.
Exactly. Gotcha. Cool. And like from your personal experience, like how do you deal with a difficult person? For example, someone who's not driven by challenge and who is very, very slow. How would you do?
That is, if I'm being, that is one of the things that I honestly find difficult to do. But what I've learned is you have to be flexible in your style. You have to be able to find ways to make it work with people. And you have to flex how you approach them, how you communicate with them, how you build a connection with them. I don't think there are people who are inherently slow or inherently don't want to challenge. But there are people who don't know why you want to challenge them. And there are people with a different mind in terms of how they process information. So I think like I've learned the hard way is that I really need to be able to convince people why this thing that I want to do is important. Like context, like I need your help because this is the importance of this. And I think if people really understand, they would do it and they might even do it better. So that's one. And if they're not at the same pace as you, then get them in earlier. Don't tell them at the last minute that you need them. If you know that you're going to need, it's your job as well. If you know you're going to need them 2 weeks from now, give them a hint now and just say, just so you know, like this thing is coming up. These are some information that I have. Because what I've learned is not everyone works the same as you. Some people, you say something to them and then it clicks. Like, okay, I know what to do. Some people, you say something to them and they want to read about it. They want to ask people's opinion because their mind works differently. And that is okay. So you be flexible. Like, not everyone is going to approach things like you. And I think you said it earlier. This is where empathy becomes important as well. Like if you were down, like what's important for them? How do they do things? And if you're the one who needs things, right, then you adjust. you be flexible for them.
Exactly. So flexibility and empathy will help them to adapt your communication style and leadership style to the person.
Yeah.
And it's really about diversity, having a diverse teams that will help you make the job, because you don't want only your type of person, the same type as you in your teams, right? You need a diversity.
Yes, it's I don't know if you've heard of the term groupthink. It's one of the most, I suppose it's one of the scariest thing that could happen in an organization when everyone have the same mindset and no one is challenging the direction and no one is seeing another perspective. So sometimes I look at some of the famous organizations that ended or kind of didn't get in with the time, like when Kodak didn't go digital, was there no one in that team that said, actually, we should do digital, that's the future? When I look at Nokia, like, was there no one in the team that said, actually, we should do this? So I think that's why we should try to, as much as it's harder sometimes, or it doesn't fit, it's not as smooth I think we should have that kind of space for questions and challenge and difference in perspective. I think it just only makes whatever end product better, better to do, or better decision, better product launch, better problem solving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is that Kodak and Nokia happens like more than 10 years ago, right? Right, when the technology was starting to grow. Now,
Yeah,
technology is exponential. So every day
that's true.
a disruptor coming to the market and changing the whole game, right? And this is why all the companies need to be adaptable and to keep that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of companies as well are getting into that, getting more into that. And if you look at one of the key things that investors look into for companies is sustainability as well. And like one of the aspects in terms of looking into sustainability is the diversity in the human capital, and how the team is being, how the culture is, how the team is. So it's really becoming much more important and much more upfront. I think there's that dynamic, but also just the whole shift as well. Just everything is becoming much more employee centric, and it should be, because that's your employees is your organization. So you should really look after them.
Exactly. Awesome. So we're talking about vulnerability, authenticity, diversity, inclusion. All these are actually challenging the status quo, the way of conducting an organization. So do you have any tips to anyone else who is challenging this same status quo?
Wow. It's a really good question. My natural response is to go find data when you challenge things. It depends. Like, it needs to be a bit of mix of the logical and also the emotional pull when you change and when you make a case. My guess, because I'm in the business world, usually when you talk to business leaders, they respond to data. And if you look at all HR, all the groundbreaking HR things that's been happening when it comes to people, retention, D&I, even reward strategy, there's always data against it that's being presented. So I think if you're looking into changing things, if you think things should be changed, find the data, find the information, summarize what it tells you, and propose, build a case, and engage using data. Because I think that is the biggest thing that a lot of the business leaders look for. Have a right balance of qualitative and quantitative information, generate insight based from it, and then propose a way forward. I think people would listen more. And also, just I like the concept of pilot. So sometimes changing a big thing is so hard. So you can start small incremental changes until you get to the point. I don't think there's one formula to it, but if it would be me, I'll look at the data. I'll try to see. I believe in small wins, and then it becomes a momentum of win. So try to small things until it becomes a big momentum of winning, making people believe that the change is something to do, because you need to start building the confidence on the change, making people believe. I think it's the whole point of change. You make people believe that this change is something we should do. So use data to do it, like do small positive things to make people confident, and then you'll have people buying in and you have people support, and then change. Before you know it, change will happen.
Got it. Is there any data that is very powerful that you've discovered and that is super powerful, and that people are just like super receptive to it?
I think the holy grail of data from an HR perspective is if you can relate it to business performance. That would be one. But I think just in general of what I'm accustomed to is you look at you look at studies on what are the predictors of a good organization. There's a lot of information out there on, top, let's say, Fortune 500 companies, very successful companies, and then they kind of do some analysis on what are the common variables or factors that makes it. So there are certain things like engagement rate, pulse check, feedback, retention, for example. So you can use all of those as kind of your benchmark and have discussion with the business in terms of how we can improve certain elements, and how you can also prove that actually if you improve on these certain elements, it does have a positive impact on the business, from a financial standpoint or sustainability standpoint. So I think if you can find, if I don't know what kind of business you have, small or big, you can find a correlation or a prediction type correlation between some people elements and its positive impact to the business, from profit share or sales. I think that's the most powerful data. Every CEO or leadership team would look at you and like, tell me more how we can do this, how we can do this better.
I see. Is there any data that you can share about those profit share, that the difference between like a DNI company and non-DNI company?
Yeah. Please don't quote me on this, but like, there's a lot of studies already that I also get inspired with. There's a few articles in HBR, for example, Harvard Business Review, that says having a diverse team, actually having a diverse and inclusive team where you don't only have different type of people, but these different type of people feel that they are included in the team and are free to voice their mind, that if the team dynamics is like that, the business has positive results. So I've seen it something to do with better profit, better turnover of the business. And there are certain, I think, what company was this? I think it was Aon company as well. I was reading. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I like to read some of these things. There was Aon who published research on well-being and engagement, and they also said in the result, it's a multi-country Asia study, and based on their analysis, it showed that people with better well-being, organizations whose employees reported a higher well-being rate, actually have a positive correlation with the business impact or business results. So it feels intuitive, that if the people are engaged and if they feel that they are included in this decision and they believe in what the organization will do, obviously they will do their best, and that will result to a positive business outcome. It feels very intuitive. So it's really like finding those studies and analysis to actually showcase it actually is. If people are happy, if people are mentally and physically well, if people understand what they're doing and inspired, all of these other good things, they actually do better. They do. And at the end of the day, it's for the organization, and the organization does do well. So I read a couple of those studies, and I'm a big believer of those things. It feels intuitive, and it's good to see kind of scientific, semi-nerdy things as well, the analysis of it.
Yeah, and that it's scientifically validated with a study. If you could, I'd be happy to share with the community the links to the articles, if you can share them.
Sure. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Put that in the description of the podcast episode and the video also. Is there any final word that you want to share with us? Because Southeast Asia is growing so fast. There are so many things that are happening. Is there one thing, one tip, or one word that you'd like to share about that?
Yeah, no, I think Asia is really going to grow more, and there's a lot of opportunities in here. So if there's anything I would share, is probably just keep an open mind. Always look at like what's information out there, try to look in advance, like what opportunities would rise or how the trends are going, what the data or what the insights telling you. Also, just there's a lot of businesses are opening up in this part of the world. A lot of investments are coming in. I think as an advocate of this profession, make sure you also have a strong people strategy against your business strategy. It really is the one that will make the difference to make you successful. So invest just as much as you would on the business elements to the people element. The people will deliver your business at the end of the day. Sometimes if you leave sometimes maybe people will forget that and focus on the hard elements of it. But the people side is, if something you don't do, it really can become a disaster. So be mindful of it.
Thank you for listening to this new episode of Asian Tide. If you liked it, please share it to your HR teams or fellow business leaders. Meanwhile, if you want to know more about HR in Asia, feel free to check our Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube pages, TYDE Consulting, TYDE Consulting, where we share our advice and tips on how to put your people first at the center of your organization. Stay tuned for our next episode of Asian Tide, coming out every Tuesday. Bye bye!